Top focus today is on what we saw transpiring across the country. In a few days from now, Punjab, with the largest percentage of Dalit population, goes to the polls. Also going to the polls is, remember, Uttar Pradesh. And therefore, what were our politicians doing? Well, all of them were across the country rushing to celebrate Sant Ravidas, the saint's birth anniversary, the Bhakti saint, who is very revered among Dalit communities, especially in Punjab and Uttar Pradesh. And therefore, Prime Minister Modi, Yogi Adityanath, Rahul, Priyanka Gandhi, Punjab Chief Minister Charanjit Channi offering prayers at Sant Ravidas temple and paying their tribute. Some of them went all the way to Varanasi to pay their tributes to the Dalit icon. Is this an attempt to woo voters in poll-bound states? Is this a classic example of political tokenism that we see? Is there a battle for the Dalit vote? That's what I want to focus on. Take a look at our top story tonight on how politicians are wooing the Dalit voter on Ravidas Jayanti.
ऐसा चाहू राज में मिले सबन को अन्न, छोट बड़ो सब सम बसे, छोट बड़ो सब सम बसे, रविदास रहे प्रसन्न.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi's tribute to venerated 15th century Saint Ravidas in poll-bound Punjab.
उन्होंने कहा था.
Hours earlier, Modi had reached the Ravidas temple in Delhi, offering prayers and even sitting down to play manjira with devotees of the thinker and spiritual leader, venerated among the numerically superior Ravidasya community, predominantly Dalits and spread across Punjab and Uttar Pradesh.
हमारे साथ बजाया गया, हमें अच्छा लगा. हमारे नरेंद्र मोदी हमारे साथ आए, हमारे पास बैठे.
हमारे महिला सत्संग मंडली को बहुत बड़ा सम्मान दिया. बड़ी खुशी है कि आज पहली बार देश के प्रधानमंत्री संत रविदास गुरु विश्राम धाम मंदिर में पधारे.
आज संत रविदास जी की भी जयंती है. यहां आने से पहले मैं दिल्ली में गुरु रविदास विश्राम धाम मंदिर जाकर आया हूं, आशीर्वाद लेकर के आया हूं.
The political beeline didn't end with Modi. Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath visited to pray at the Sant Ravidas temple in Varanasi, even participating in the langar with devotees. The Congress, which is eyeing Dalit votes after installing a Dalit as Chief Minister in Punjab, didn't let go of the occasion either. Rahul and Priyanka sat down for the community lunch and served devotees at the traditional langar. Chief Minister Charanjit Singh Channi was among the first devotees to reach the Varanasi temple early in the morning.
दूसरे पक्ष है वो आप लोगों पे दलित पॉलिटिक्स की जो है वो एलिगेशन लगा रहा है. कैसे देखते हैं इसे? दलित पॉलिटिक्स है करके ये दिख रहा है.
मैं यहाँ आया हूँ, एक भी बात पॉलिटिक्स की नहीं की है, ना ही मैं कोई पॉलिटिकल बात का जवाब देता हूँ. लेकिन मैं अपने गुरु के घर में आया हूँ. किसी को इसमें ही पॉलिटिक्स लगती है तो लगती रहे.
Mayawati's BSP, the primary claimant of Dalit votes, was however absent in the temple run. Ravidas Jayanti had earlier prompted the poll panel to defer Punjab polls to enable devotees to travel. With Supriya Bharadwaj in Varanasi, Bureau Report, India Today.
Let's raise some big questions tonight. Are our netas guilty of tokenism when it comes to reaching out to Dalits? Are Dalits simply a vote bank for our political parties at election time? Have leaders actually failed to meet Dalit aspirations? And is Mayawati the missing X factor which is now being exploited by other parties in these elections? I'm joined by Pawan Khera, the Congress's evergreen spokesperson. I'm joined by Tuhin Sinha, the BJP spokesperson. Professor Vivek Kumar is a political analyst who's also been close to Mayawati in the past. And Dr. Kalyani is a PhD scholar Sociology, JNU, and also has raised these issues in the past. So I appreciate all of you joining me on the show tonight. I thought of coming to the politicians first, but I'm going to come to you, Dr. Kalyani, first, before our politicians enter it. When you see politicians making a beeline to temples, Ravidas temples, when you've got even the Prime Minister leading the way, Rahul Gandhi, Priyanka Gandhi doing langar, and interestingly also, Arvind Kejriwal declaring it a holiday in Delhi. How do you see it, Dr. Kalyani? Do you see it as a classic example of tokenism, or do you believe this is a sense of remembrance, of recognition that Dalits do matter?
Thank you, Rajdeep, for raising that question. I think that's a significant and important question in contemporary politics. Let me begin by saying that Sant Ravidas, or Guru Ravidas, as some call it, is a bhakti saint, and his history and legacy goes back to 15th and 16th century. So, Dalits have been revering him. There are Guru Banis which have, he has written Guru Banis, and there are so many popular songs and popular culture around Ravidas. So revering Ravidas is nothing new. I mean, but when it comes to politics and Dalit politics in particular, as you're saying, the shift to Ravidasya community is significant to woo Dalit politics and to woo Dalit votes. Particularly so because in Punjab, there's a huge population around the Ravidasya communities. But again, I would like to make a point here that when one looks into the Ravidasya community in Punjab, in UP, in parts of UP, as well as in diasporic communities, there is quite fragmentation in which even Ravidasya followers have been, revering to Guru Ravidas. Some call him Guru, some call him Sant. There is a lot of I would say an appropriation. There is a lot of appropriation of Ravidas also happening, but there is, let's not forget that when it comes to the identity of, or when it comes to the legacy of Ravidas, it goes far back than what contemporary politics is doing to it. So, and we need to understand.
Okay, so you're saying contemporary politics, in a way, contemporary politics is trying to appropriate someone who has been revered by Dalit communities for centuries. And that's interesting that suddenly they seem to be remembering him. Election time, Tuhin Sinha, let's be honest. The Prime Minister, going to a Gurudwara, all very good. But if there were no elections in Punjab 4 days from now, the Prime Minister perhaps would have made a token statement, a tweet here and there, and not gone out of his way to try and make this out to be as if this is a major, make it into a political event. Do you concede that Dalit groups in particular often comment that they get remembered only at election time? And it just so happened that because Ravidas Jayanti fell on the eve of the elections in Punjab, a state with a 32% Dalit population, everyone from Prime Minister to the Gandhi family is suddenly remembering the Ravidas Jayanti.
Rajdeep, let's be honest over here. This is an era of cultural revivalism. So why only Sant Ravidas? We are also revisiting subaltern history on which I have been working on. So I don't think it had anything to do with the elections. We are largely invoking our cultural legacy, which had been forgotten or which never got its due by the Congress. But on a day when the country was celebrating...
No, but why didn't it happen over the last 7 years? Why did it happen from 2014 to 21? I don't think that the Prime Minister went out of his way to make Ravidas Jayanti into an event. In 2022, on the eve of the Punjab elections, where Dalit vote matters, you suddenly make it an event. An event is hardly cultural revivalism.
No, I think, symbolisms are a part of politics, and I don't think you should dispute that. But the fact is, if you're asking why didn't it happen in the last 7 years, in the last 7 years, a lot of other things happened which would not have happened. We passed the landmark SC/ST Amendment Act, restoring the original provisions of the ST/ST Act, which had been diluted by the Supreme Court and which eventually was accepted by the Supreme Court. All of the schemes, whether it is Jan Dhan Yojana, Nal Se Jal program, the maximum beneficiaries are from the Dalit community. But yes, we have also ended the age-old cliched hyphenations of Dalit Muslim, which was the mainstay of BSP politics, or Muslim Yadav, which was the mainstay of Samajwadi Party politics. We have our politics has led to a massive consolidation of Hindu votes, and Dalits are an integral part of our society. We can never, today on a day when the country is celebrating Sant Ravidas Jayanti, have you noticed how Channi has insulted the Dalits of UP and Bihar? The maximum migrant laborers who work in Punjab from these states belong to the Dalit community. And look at the statement he made ridiculing them, and Priyanka Gandhi was giggling. This is the way the Congress has treated them over the years. Whether it was B.R. Ambedkar, whether it was Babu Jagjeevan Ram, none of them got their due under the Congress. We have not done that. We have given the Dalits their due in politics and in the national discourse.
Okay, let Pawan Khera respond to that, because you made a direct charge there against the Congress. You're obviously referring to the Charanjit Singh Channi's statement, where he seemed to suggest that he would not allow bhaiyas from Delhi, UP and Bihar to enter Punjab or to take over Punjab, and you are now sort of linking it to Dalits who come to work on farms in Punjab. But Pawan Khera, you want to respond also, because is this tokenism, as I said, symbolism? Actually, the fact is Dalits on most social and economic indicators still well below other communities. So how do you explain it and respond to what Tuhin Sinha just said about the Congress leadership?
Rajdeep, let's be very honest to each other and to our viewers. Politicians come from the same society. They don't come from Mars, whether it's the BJP politician or the Congress politician or any other party. They have to connect and respond to the sensibilities of different sections of the society. So I don't grudge anybody visiting the holy shrines of Sant Ravidas, whether it is Mr. Modi, whether it's Charanjit Singh Channi, whether it's Rahul ji or Priyanka ji. Obviously, we need to connect with our people. How can you just ignore sensibilities of people who you claim to be working with?
Absolutely, but does it, I agree with you, Mr. Khera, but does it take an election for you to recognize this? That's my point.
Okay.
Sant Ravidas is a 15th, 16th century saint.
I'll come to that right away. The Bhakti movement, let's stick to Sant Ravidas. The Bhakti movement, you will see, if I'm sure you've read the Bhakti movement and you've learned from it, all of us, like all of us. The closest to Bhakti movement was the worldview expounded by Mahatma Gandhi. The closest to Bhakti movement is the philosophy of and the ideology of the Congress party. We do not have to destroy somebody else's culture to revive your own culture, as claimed by my colleague in the BJP. That's the essence of Bhakti movement. Everybody is one, equality. That's the essence of Bhakti movement. So it becomes tokenism when you start linking Mr. Channi's statement, which had nothing to do with either UP or Bihar or Dalits, to this on an occasion, on a debate on Sant Ravidas. That's politics. That's not, that's in fact worse form of tokenism. So the party which comes closest to the Bhakti movement, the philosophy of Bhakti movement, is the Congress. You can't accuse us of tokenism. Sorry, it's in our DNA.
But then how do you? No, 1 minute. If you are saying that that equality is in the DNA of the Congress party, how do you explain Charanjit Singh Channi's statement suggesting that Punjab will not allow those from UP, bhaiyas from UP, Bihar, Delhi to enter Punjab? How does that fit in with the notion of equality?
His comment comes in the context of the thousands of exported workers of Aam Aadmi Party, because they did not find anybody local. They went and borrowed from different states who are coming into Punjab. And I've been in Punjab for the last 1 month. Who are coming to Punjab and setting a narrative which divides people of Punjab. Now, that's something which no chief minister, no leader, whichever party he or she may belong to, can accept. So I don't see anything wrong in what he said, because let them try and say, oh, he said it for X, Y. No, he said it specifically for those workers, exported workers of the Aam Aadmi Party who are trying to destroy the social fabric of Punjab just for an election, for 20, 30 days you come, you get paid and you start talking the language of Hindus versus Sikhs. Sorry, that's not acceptable. That culture is absolutely, Punjab will find it repugnant, Punjab will reject it, and that's the reason why Mr. Channi said what he said.
Okay, interesting, because I'm going to press you once more. Many believe that it's the Congress. I mean, political observers believe that it's the Congress, according to Sunil Jakhar, your own leader, who denied a Punjabi Hindu the chance of becoming chief minister and thereby projected a Dalit instead, because it was an attempt to woo the 32% Dalit vote. So, in a sense, Dalit Sikh versus Hindu was also, according to your critics, created by the Congress when you made Mr. Channi and not Mr. Jakhar, who claims he enjoyed a support of the majority of the MLAs of Punjab.
Rajdeep, I have been traveling with Mr. Jakhar. We've been addressing meetings, we've been addressing press conferences together. He is a very clear-minded person. Every single leader of Punjab, whether it's Mr. Jakhar, whether it's Mr. Navjot Singh Sidhu, they publicly went and announced their total support to the choice, original choice of Rahul Gandhi, which is Channi ji. And then, of course, this choice was endorsed by a lot of workers and our candidates. So I don't see why you should invoke statements made in the past. Now, Mr. Jakhar, ask him now. You pick up the phone and ask him. Let's see what he says. We are all with Mr. Channi right now. In every single leader of the Congress party, everybody has a right to articulate his or her ambition. It's not a Modi Shah, Shahenshah Shah party. कि हम तो चुप ही बैठे रहेंगे घर पे. अरे साहब, हमको बोलने की आजादी हमारी पार्टी में है, हम बोलते हैं और सही वक्त पे बोलते हैं, और उसके बाद जब लगता है डिसीजन हो गया, चुप हो जाते हैं और सपोर्ट करते हैं. Nothing wrong in that.
You know, many will say that the Congress has too much democracy, so it leads to discordant voices. But Professor Vivek, you're listening patiently. You worked, 1 minute, you worked very closely with Mayawati, and let's return to that central Dalit question. Mayawati broke a glass ceiling here in Uttar Pradesh by becoming the first chief minister in 1995 from the Dalit community. Mr. Charanjit Singh Channi has in a way broken a glass ceiling, Punjab's first Dalit Sikh chief minister. Do you believe that is more important, political representation, empowerment, than going to a temple on Ravidas Jayanti? The symbolism is just is tokenism. What you really need is stronger political representation for the Dalit community in a more effective manner, because this time even Mayawati is missing from the elections. Dalits are looking at options even beyond Mayawati.
Well, I think you have said it, Rajdeep, you have said it effectively, that what Dalits want. Dalits are asking for self-representation. They're asking for self-representation in judiciary, bureaucracy, university, industry, civil society, and media. And you're not willing to give them representation. And self-representation, as you are saying, effective self-representation, where they are themselves career of their own will. It's not that when they start taking some decisions, when they are participating in decision-making power, you exclude them. So I have to see whether Channi
So what are you saying? Are you saying that Dalits want a share in power? You're saying the effective way for either the BJP, because the BJP will say, look, we made the president who's a Dalit, Ramnath Kovind, the president of India. The Congress will turn around and say, look, we made Punjab's first Dalit Sikh chief minister.
They will say that they have made.
Do you see things changing?
No, but they will, if you say that you have made Ramnath Kovind as president of India, they will say that we had made it long back with K.R. Narayanan. And they will keep on counting. So that's not the problem. The problem is that whether, as you were saying, that effective decision makers, where are they? Are they really having power to make representation? But what actually our friend was talking about, we are talking about what you call cultural revivalism. And my student Kalyani was just telling that we don't need them. Our actually Dalit community is empowered enough to revive their own culture. And as you know, that the Dalit diaspora, Ravidasiya diaspora, whether in Canada, whether in US, whether in UK, Germany, Australia, wherever they have taken Ravidas there. And instead of actually, giving them the the real representation in decision making, there is a process of reductionism to atrocity, untouchability. Now somebody is talking about you are giving them tap water after 72 years of promulgation of democratic constitution. You are talking about tap water. Is this not symbolism? So therefore, I think let us make our democracy more, strengthened and more representative and participatory, rather than giving them cultural representations like that. I don't buy that argument that you empower a person.
Tuhin Sinha, these cultural symbols are tokenism. You need much more. You need genuine political representation, effective political representation, which Professor Kumar seems to suggest the BJP has not done enough of.
I'm a little amused, Rajdeep. Did Professor Kumar refer to tap water as symbolism? It's a shame that in the last 72 years, there were crores and crores of households which did not get it, and we are finally fulfilling that. So it's not a symbolism, it's an essential need. That's point number one. Point number two.
It is also reductionism. It is also reductionism that you yourself are not ready. You are talking about here. What about Gujarat? You have been ruling Gujarat for 25 years. Whether you were able to give the tap water, why you are reducing them only to untouchability, atrocity, and something like reservation? I think
Professor, let him respond.
Judiciary, where is that representation? Talk industry, where is that representation?
No, I was hoping that Mr. Khera was...
Professor, let Tuhin speak. Yes.
Coming to Mr. Khera, I was hoping that Mr. Khera would at least condemn Channi's statement, but he virtually condoned the statement, and in fact, give him a, gave him a, kind of leeway by saying that Mr. Channi was referring to workers of Aam Aadmi Party. Does Aam Aadmi Party have any presence in UP and Bihar? Channi clearly mentioned people from UP and Bihar. So I think, it's very sad that when it comes to Rajasthan, which reports the worst crimes against Dalit, the Congress does not utter a word. When Virendra Paswan, a hawker, is killed in Kashmir on 5th October last year, killed by militants, did Congress ever utter a word? So for us, it is not, symbolism. We have genuinely made every effort to empower Dalits. I have spoken to you about our landmark Amendment Act. I have spoken to you about all
language. This is the language, Rajdeep. You see, we have done. This is the language they speak, as if they are patronizing Dalit community, which has constitutional rights in their society. They are not surviving on your benevolence.
Okay, Professor, you made your point. You believe that the BJP is patronizing Dalits, not empowering them significantly. But Pawan Khera, let's be clear, the kind of statement Mr. Channi made is typically of the kind of politics we don't want to see, the politics of divide and rule. To suggest that bhaiyas have come somewhere or the other, he was referring to the fact that, trying to play on the fact that the Aam Aadmi Party is being projected as a party of outsiders. And, is that the way you're going to build equality? I mean, surely you invoked Mahatma Gandhi. That's not the kind of statement Gandhi would ever accept, surely.
So I am also sure, Rajdeep, nobody in Punjab or any other state would accept the kind of politics being exported by Aam Aadmi Party. When Mr. Tuhin Sinha perhaps didn't hear me right, I was very clear. I didn't say they are the true, genuine workers of Aam Aadmi Party from UP or Bihar. I said they are paid workers of Aam Aadmi Party who are employed by Aam Aadmi Party. They are not dedicated, committed workers.
So either way, it's an unfortunate statement to use terms like bhaiya. It is an unfortunate statement, Mr. Khera, to use words like bhaiya. Let's be clear. These are statements that should not be used in our political life.
You are being very condescending. You want to teach how a particular leader from a particular any community what words should he use? अरे साहब, रस्टिक भाषा में जो उन्होंने कहा, उन्होंने किसके लिए कहा, वो बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है. अगर आप वो नहीं सुनना चाहते, मत सुनिए. Now, coming to Tuhin Sinha, Tuhin ji, please on this show give a commitment to hundreds or thousands of workers of RSS that the next Sarsang Chalak would be a Dalit. Jagjivan Ram ji, जिनको आपने invoke किया, was the party president of Congress party. He was our national president of the party. Give me one example of a Sarsang Chalak. BJP doesn't matter. Nobody stood with Mr. Bangaru Lakshman when he got, unfortunately, he is no more, with all due respect to the departed soul. But when he got caught red-handed, accepting a bribe, nobody stood by Bangaru Lakshmanji because he belonged to a particular caste. Now tell me, who would be the next Dalit Sarsanchalak, and why did you not have a single Dalit Sarsanchalak over the last almost 100-year history of Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh? That is the real. BJP is just a pawn in the hands of RSS.
Quick response to Sinha. That's a point. While the BJP is changing, there is no doubt that this is a changing BJP. I don't think we should see it in a deep freeze. The fact is, when will we get a Dalit Sarsanchalak is a direct question Pawan Khera wants to pose.
Can Mr. Khera commit that the next Congress president will be a Dalit? We have only believed in democracy. We have never discriminated, between a Brahmin and a Dalit. But against the Congress party, who have denied, after the stellar contribution of B.R. Ambedkar, eventually look at the way B.R. Ambedkar had a fallout with the Congress party. Look at the way Babu Jagjeevan Ram had a fallout with the party. You will not see any Dalit having a fallout with the BJP in that manner. But yes, we believe in meritocracy. If a Dalit is capable, why not? He will be the next RSS chief.
Okay,
I'll have to respond to that.
Remember also Bangaru Lakshman and the manner he was ostracized post Tehelka. But quick response, when will we get, are you giving a guarantee that the next Congress president will be a Dalit, Mr. Pawan Khera, is the question being asked to you?
This guarantee for a party which elects its president cannot be given even by Rahul Gandhi. They can ask these questions because they don't have an election in RSS or BJP. बोल सकते हैं ये बातें. हम तो कोई गारंटी नहीं ले सकते अगला प्रेसिडेंट कौन होगा, हम नहीं ले सकते. जो इलेक्शन जीतेगा हमारी पार्टी का इस साल, अगले आने वाले साल में, इस साल में आपको मालूम पड़ जाएगा इसी साल. So don't ask such questions. Rajdeep, there is a difference between samata and samarasta. But you'll never hear RSS talk about samata.
पर क्या
समरसता? वो एक शमशान, एक पेड़, एक मंदिर की भाषण होते हैं, कुछ नहीं होता.
I've heard the two political voices. I'm going to give the young Dr. Kalyani a final word. Because, let's hear a young Dalit voice to tell us, what is your message to the political parties, a quick message to them, that if they really want to reach out to Dalits in a meaningful manner, what should they be doing?
Rajdeep, I would only say that they should read history, because I think BJP was, spokesperson was talking about cultural revivalism. That's a very interesting and fanciful term. But was cultural revivalism happening today? Was it happening because somebody entered Ravidasya temple, or did it happen centuries before? Why are we remembering it today? And the second important point I want to say is, when we look into the whole aspect, as Professor Kumar was also mentioning, effective democracy, we have to talk about at which moment we are talking about cultural revivalism. When the whole Ravidasya community is there in diaspora, they are doing cultural production, but there is hardly any support from the governing or the political parties to these communities. And also, when we look into the whole episode of Dera Sachkhand Ballan...
Kalyani, I've run out of time. I've run out of time, but I think you made important points, and I hope political parties recognize that while cultural revivalism, as they term it now, is important, symbols are important, what is needed is meaningful representation and power sharing. And that, in a sense, would be the true way to take the Dalit movement forward. Let's take a look back then. Thanks very much for joining me